Well, good morning, everybody. It's Danny back from Deep South Homestead on Porch Time today. Guys, yes, we're in the cabin. The cicadas outside are so loud that literally your eardrums in your ear vibrate. They're making so much noise. And probably if I just stop for a second, I don't know if you can hear them. Even inside the cabin, I can still hear them. They're just that loud. I don't ever remember them being quite this bad right now as far as the noise that they're making. And I'm sure probably in the past they have been. I just haven't paid attention. I just finished up. I've been routing some boards to go on the walls in the bedroom here in the cabin. I do my own shiplap on my lumber. I don't buy it already shiplapped. I make my own with tools. And those routers make so much noise. When I stopped routing, I thought my ears were still ringing from the routing, and I got to listen. It was the cicadas. I was like, wow, they're that loud. So I decided today would be better for me to come inside and sit in the off-grid cabin and just enjoy being in the cabin. Wanda and I have been spending a lot of time over here lately. It was the purpose of the cabin from day one was to get out of the house where we live at, the big house that's totally electric, everything in it, and the field that's inside the home, from the smart meters, the routers, I mean all the computers, everything that's all over there, we believe is affecting our sleep pattern. We come over here to the off-grid cabin and we don't have all that over here. Everything over here is like the little radio here is like a battery powered radio, or we have the power stations that run the cabin, or we're in the process of installing solar and a big generator system outside and all. Everything in the cabin is LED. I'm not happy about that, but it burns such a small amount of electricity. And the reason I say I'm not happy about the LEDs is I just added that, I just redone the studio room over at the big house that we were in, and I installed an LED light in there that I had purchased. Well, on that LED light in the instructions right up front, it said, if you notice a frequency problem with your radios or your televisions and stuff like that, you might want to change this LED light out and put a different one in there. And I told Wanda, I was like, that's weird. The LED light has a frequency all of its own that could mess with the radio and all that kind of stuff. So guys, they took all the A19 regular filament bulbs away from us. I do believe there's an agenda in that. I'm not going to lie to you. We do have lanterns and stuff like that we can use over here if we decide not to use the LEDs. Now, we don't turn the lights on very often because the design of the cabin is where there's plenty of light in it. As a matter of fact, I don't have any lights on in here right now, and you see how bright it is in here right now. We designed the cabin with that in mind, and it makes it very efficient to operate everything over here at zero cost almost. You have the initial startup cost of getting the power stations and the generators and the solar systems and all that, but once you have all this, then virtually you just live for free after that. You might need to purchase a little fuel for a generator. I think the old generator I have out here now on the front porch is not a pure sine wave, so we can't use it to run the cabin. LEDs just flicker like a horror show. But it takes 5 gallons to put in that generator, and I put 5 gallons in that generator probably 3 months ago, and I still haven't used it all out. And we use that thing for cooking, for running a heavy-duty extension cord in here to run the hot plate and all to cook with. I use it running power tools and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's really a good generator. It's a Champion. It's a large Champion now. It could run a house almost. But we've decided to change out and go with a pure sine wave one to hook directly into the cabin, so that when we use it, we don't have an issue with the LEDs or anything like that. If the power stations happen to go dead, we can at least use a generator. So those are some things that we're working on here at the Off-Grid Cabin, because this is where we plan on spending most of our time now, as soon as we get completely finished with it. Now, we still got a long way to go. We've been working on this thing like 3 or 4 years now, and it's taken a long time, because we believe in paying for something. We don't believe in going in debt to do it, which takes time. And with that being said, I wanted to stop and talk about a little bit today about what would it take today for everything to change and go back to what we used to call normal, or a better normal than what we used to know? What would it take to make that happen? And as I sat and thought about it, and I prayed about it, I'm like, Lord, what could I do to make things better here for Wanda and I? I mean, what could I do that would be a blessing to others? What could I do that would be a blessing to my country even? What could I do that possibly would turn America around if we could all do it? What is it? And basically what I've come up with, listening to reading scriptures and the Spirit, dealing with the Spirit and everything, is that we need more Noahs. We need more Noahs, and we need more Daniels. We need more Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednegos. These are what we need more of. We need more of these, because these are patriarchs that didn't give in to wickedness. And that seems to be the biggest downfall of America right now, is that everyone has given in to wickedness. And for whatever reason, when we all have our reasons for giving in, but these men did not. Because, if you remember back, it says, "And Noah found grace in the eyes of God." Daniel chose not to fall down and worship the image. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't worship the image either. Daniel went against the king's decree, and every morning he opened his window to the east and he prayed to his God. He went against the system. They all went against the system. Now, I'm not telling you to be rebellious and to rise up or anything like that. I'm telling you to be what God said in the book of Samuel. I believe that's where it was at. It's better to be obedient than it is to sacrifice. Now, that's a pretty profound statement right there. God said, I would rather you just do what you're supposed to do than to sacrifice for me. Just be obedient. And if you go and look in Deuteronomy at the blessings of obedience and the curses of disobedience, and you look at the blessings of obedience, and just for being obedient, the Lord promises us several things there. He'll make our storehouses last from harvest to harvest, year to year. And He will rebuke the devourer of the land. He'll drive the wild beasts from our land so that they don't eat up all of our crops. He says you'll be blessed if you go in the cities. You'll be blessed if you live in the country. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a city person or a country person. He says it doesn't matter. Whichever one you live in, you'll be blessed if you'll just be obedient. And because Daniel was obedient, Daniel was tricked. The king was tricked. And the king had to have Daniel thrown into the lion's den. But when he threw him in, the lions didn't eat him. He was obedient. God protected him. The 3 Hebrew children were thrown into the fiery furnace. It even consumed the men who threw them in. And they said, did we not throw 3 in? But it looked like 4 walking around in there. And then they eventually were asked to come out of the fiery furnace, and only the things that bound them were gone. Their clothes didn't even have the smell of smoke on them. Because of obedience, they were delivered. Now, I'll be honest with you, I think it's too late for the country. Because here about a year ago, the Lord really impressed upon me through study of Scripture and stuff that He had lifted His hand off of America. America's cup of iniquity was full. And once that happens, then you have to have judgment. And since that moment, our country has experienced, wildfires like crazy, flooding, horrendous weather, pestilences, diseases, droughts, pandemics, all these type things have begun to happen now, which is the curses of disobedience. So in order for us to get through all of this, what did we need? We need more Noahs. We need men who will stand in the gap and say, I will not bow or bend to this wicked system. This is what we need. Noah, I know, it had to be hard on the man. Because there he was building a big giant ship. And everybody's looking at him, Noah, what are you doing? I'm building a boat. Well, why? There's no water around here. Well, it's going to rain one day. It's never rained, Noah. And made fun of day in and day out while he constructed this thing. There had to be days where he just got frustrated and said, Lord, is this really real? Is this really going to happen? Is the world really going to flood, Father? And I'm pretty sure the Lord reassured him and said, Noah, just keep doing what you're doing. I promise you, it's going to happen. And that's the way it is today, guys. America is going to collapse. We think everything is going to remain the way that it is. We're always going to get up. We're going to be able to go to work. We're going to be able to go to a grocery store. We're going to be able to do this. We're going to be able to do that. We're going to be able to jump in a car and run to do whatever. Go visit or, go to church, whatever. And I'm here to tell you, there's going to come a day when you're not going to be able to do that. And when that day comes, who will you be as an individual? Will you be a Noah and remain faithful and obedient, or a Daniel? Or will you comply and say, well, I don't have a choice. I can't go see Grandma and Grandpa if I don't do this. I can't go to work if I don't do this. Or I can't go buy groceries if I don't do this. Because it tells us that in the latter days of the age, there's going to be a mark required. And without that mark, you're not going to be able to buy or sell anything. You're probably not going to be able to do anything. Because you have to stop and think, if you can't buy or sell anything, what does that mean? You can't buy an automobile. So that means you can't go nowhere. If you got an automobile, you can't buy gas or diesel. Because it says you can't buy or sell anything without the mark. You can't go to the grocery store and buy groceries if that's what you do. I mean, you can't go online and buy something because it says you got to have that mark to be able to do it. And I'll stop right there, and a lot of you's going to say, well, I don't plan on being here during that time. I'm going to be raptured out. Well, let's play devil's advocate for just a minute. Let's suppose that everything you've been told your entire life ends up being a lie. And the Lord tarries, and He don't come till the middle of the tribulation. And you hadn't made any preparation because you believed it'd always be before it. And I'm not going to argue the point with anybody. I hope it is before it. But I don't think it is. Well, suppose it ends up being post. The end. Then what? Will you be a Noah? Will you be a Daniel? What will you be? Will you give in and take the mark? How easy was it for you to take this if you took it? Did you comply real quick and say, well, I might die? Well, what if they look at you and tell you with the mark, I'm going to cut your head off? Because the Bible says that's going to happen. Will you take it? I mean, what's your breaking point? That's something I had to settle in my heart. What is my breaking point? At what point will I give in? Or will I be a Daniel or a Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Will I let them try to put me to death like they did them? Because Daniel didn't know if he threw him in there if the lions was going to eat him or not. He didn't know. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when they were thrown into that fiery furnace, they didn't know if they were going to be burnt up or not. But because of their faith and their obedience, they were delivered. How do we know if we give in to the system whether we would have been delivered or not? How do we know? God is looking for obedience. He's looking for more Noahs. He's looking for more Daniels, more Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's. He's looking for more of these type men who will stand in the gap and say, no, I will not bend the knee. And like I said, I'm not telling you to be rebellious. I'm not telling you to rise up against anyone. I'm telling you, never compromise your spiritual beliefs. Never compromise your morals. Because that's what's happened in our country today. We've compromised our beliefs. We've compromised our morals. And you say, well, I don't know if that's true or not. Well, I mean, you look at people like Madeline O'Hara, one person got prayer took out of schools. One in a Bible nation. One wicked woman managed to have it done. Why? Because good people done absolutely nothing. That's all it takes for wickedness to run rampant, is for good people to do absolutely nothing. And stop and think. I mean, now we don't have, they took the 10 Commandments down in front of most public places. You're forbidden to pray before ball games. I've actually seen, this is cool now. I've actually watched some videos where they got ready to play ball on a ball field and they didn't have prayer, or they didn't have the national anthem played before it because they said they could not. That city had voted not to do it, And the whole stands stood up and began to sing the Star Spangled Banner. And afterwards they began to pray. And they couldn't even start the ball game because it was just so unruly for that little while right there. That's what it takes, is for people to stand up and do what's right, to be obedient. That's what it means to stand in the gap. Like I said, I've had to settle in my own heart how far I would go and what my breaking point would be. What does my life really mean to me? The Bible says those who seek to save their life actually lose it. Precious in the eyes of the Lord is the death of one of his saints. You know, here upon this earth, we don't look at things like that. When someone passes on, we all sit back and we mourn the loss. I can honestly say, with the passing of my mother, the passing of my father, I've even lost a wife, I was able to come to a point I was able to rejoice. Now, I miss them. Don't get me wrong, I miss them. But I can rejoice in the fact of knowing where they're at. And that they're in the presence of the Lord. And if I could talk to them today, I would almost guarantee you, you could not get one of them to come back here. They would say there is absolutely no way I would go back there, because it is so great where they are. And for us here upon the earth, it's hard for us to imagine that being any better than what we have here. Because it's human nature, we want to live. So we have to settle in our own hearts, what's our breaking points? And you have to do it now, because mine has already been made up. I know what my breaking points are going to be. I'm not going to comply. I already know that. I'm ready to go if I have to go. I'm not going to give in if there's any way possible, or at least as long as I'm conscious, let me say that. I'm not going to give in to a system as long as I'm conscious. Someone may physically hold me down and make me do something that I don't want to do, but it won't be because I willfully comply. And like I've said in other porch times, you know, Wanda went to school to be a medical coder, went to college, and I've looked at the ICD10 Code book that they have for insurances and different reasons, you know, what doctor's offices and hospitals and stuff like that. There is actually a code for non-compliance. It's under mental illness. It's classified as a mental illness when you won't comply. So, with that being in the new book that's came out, I'm pretty sure that at some point here in the very near future, that those who don't comply with what's being said or done will be classified as mentally ill. And when you fall under the headline of mentally ill, you'll be mentally unstable. You won't be able to own a firearm, or maybe not even handle your own finances and all this type of stuff. So we have to settle in our hearts now. What are we going to do, and how far are we willing to go? And let's just suppose that you're not taken out when you think you'll be taken out and spared by the Lord. and you have to endure a little longer into a tribulation period, then what? I mean, you need to settle these things in your mind. Are you prepared physically, emotionally, spiritually, physically to handle this? How fast did you jump into this right here? That'll probably tell you how fast you'll take the mark right here or right here. Because if you jumped into that really quick because you're scared, now I'm not saying that's the mark, don't get me wrong, because it's not. But it's a precursor to it. I know it for a fact. The Lord has shared that with me through scripture and stuff and studying. It is a precursor for what's coming. And I know a lot of people go, well, I did it because of my health. There again, what was your breaking point? Well, I was scared. I didn't want to die. There again, what was your breaking point? You know, I mean, we couldn't go see our parents. We couldn't see our grandparents. We couldn't travel out of the country. We couldn't do this. There again, what was your breaking point? All I'm doing today, I'm not telling you to take it. I'm not telling you not to take it. But today, I want us to think about, who will you be if things get really worse than what they are now? And they're going to. America is going to collapse. I mean, it's just already prophesied. It's going to happen. So who will you be? Will you be a Noah? Will you be a Daniel? A Shadrach, a Meshach, a Abednego? Who will you be? Or will you be one of the sheep that's led off to the slaughter? Think about that today. It was a tough decision. I mean, I sit back and had to really do some hard soul searching. Because suppose something comes up and it fixes it where I can't see my family anymore, I can't do anything. Because I didn't comply with whatever they come up with. And they'll come up with something. And I've already had to settle in my heart that it's okay if I don't get to see my family. It's okay if I can't go to town. It's okay if I can't have insurance. It's okay if I can't go to a doctor. It's okay because I know who holds tomorrow. And as the song says, I know who holds my hand. My faith is not in a man. My faith is in my living God. And for that reason, guys, I'm pretty sure of my outcome. And I would hope that you would be too. Today, Porch Time is meant to be thought-provoking. It's not meant to lead anyone in any one direction, but to make us think. Because that's something in our country that has been taken from us, is our ability to think for ourselves. We're being told subliminally what to think, what to do, and how we're to do it. The art of common sense and thinking for ourselves has almost ceased to exist. They want us to be like little puppets. And I'm here today to tell you, do not fall prey to it. Put your faith in the Lord, not in man. Thank you, guys, from Deep South Homestead.